I might have told Kathleen, but I'm number one, thank you for taking your time. We're very
Yeah.
appreciative of it.
Oh
We're
my gosh,
doing,
of course.
everything we
Sure.
can to be able to make this success at Omega, and it's very exciting for us. We'd love to be up there, so we appreciate your time. I'm out in Washington State. Our son is in the Navy, and he's got a 2-year old. He and his wife, and he's getting ready to be deployed out the Middle East in a couple weeks. So I came out
Oh,
here to be with him a little bit and with them.
wow.
Hopefully help out, but not get in the way. I really did want to hear from you, Kathleen, about what is the main benefit. What is the overriding experience of people when they come to Omega? What's the feeling? What's the environment that makes it so special?
Omega is just an incredible place. And I think it's partially because we are a place on the planet where people come together to improve upon themselves in some way. And our motto is awakening the best in the human spirit. And that is what we are trying to do every single day. We try to scour the planet and find all of these interesting people and topics and techniques, and we bring everybody to our place in Rhinebeck, New York, and we try to create an experience where you can have a very deep dive into whatever it is you've come to study. And I think part of the reason why, in a short amount of time, people can have transformations at Omega is precisely because there are so many people gathered in this one spot who are sending out like the highest energy vibration and who are all gathered to try and better themselves and the world. Our motto at Omega is awakening the best in the human spirit. And that is really and truly what happens on our property. So I think I think that's the best part of coming to Omega. No matter what you're coming to study, it could be some sort of spiritualism. It could be yoga. It could be breath work. It could be just about anything. Leadership, sustainable living. Regardless of what it is, you are going to leave a changed person because of all of the other human beings in that same space with you during that time.
That's beautifully said. And it really goes along. And Hayden, I was waiting because I thought you were going to want to speak to that because a lot of people in our Becoming You community are saying we just want to be part of this higher vibration, to use your words. We want to be part of not just complaining about things that are happening or being fearful about things that are happening, but we want to be part of this movement forward into, it's the evolution of the human being. It's the evolution of the individual. And I love what you said that when we're in community with one another, it has an exponential, effect. And we feel that way on our campus too. And we've had our business for over 30 years, and people will come into our space, and they'll say, "Oh, I just feel good here." And I think it's because of all of the people who have come and gathered and shared and been shared their life really with us and with one another, that it's created this energy and this synergy that people do feel it when they come into the space.
I think that you could also say, not unlike the past in many ways, whether it was World War II, the Vietnam War, you go all the way up to 9/11, that there have always been these events that have awakened the humans' need to take a closer look, not only at themselves, but life itself on the planet. And I cannot recall over the course of my lifetime, and I'll be 75 in August, anything that equals what we are witness to today. That is awakening the best of us. or at least is trying to. And so it is an extremely unique time, in my opinion, which doesn't really matter, but it's an extremely unique time for this to be taking place because we are being forced to change. We're being forced to evolve. And, what is it that is evolving? And I would suggest it is consciousness itself. We cannot maintain this old way of looking at things and expect things to change. And that's from my perspective, this is happening globally and not just locally.
And definitely the individual. Um, we're always looking out there. Kathleen, Hayden, and I, of course, we're in the same boat as everybody else. We look out there for the answers, but what our work is really about is it's the answers are inside of us. It's like Hayden and I were speaking yesterday, and he said, "What do people normally mean when they talk about becoming centered?" And I thought, well, it's leaving their outer life and trying to get into their inner life. It's trying to be still or quiet or introspective. And as we talked, it was like, oh, the real centeredness would be if I was inside and then like a rose that opens, the outer petals don't open first, the rose, the energy from the tightest inner part of the rose pushes the other petals open. And so it's living my life from this inner part of myself, this inner knowing, this inner truth. And that's what people think is unattainable, but it isn't.
This would be our first trip to and visit to Omega. You want to share some more about how the programs operate and the visitors' exposure to many aspects of Omega there.
Sure. So Omega is a holistic retreat center. We are located in the beautiful town of Rhinebeck, New York. It's in the Hudson Valley, which is just a gorgeous, gorgeous region of the country. And we are on 250 acres of just gorgeous property. We have hiking trails, we have a lake where you can take canoes and kayaks out. You can go see the great blue heron as he's fishing, and you can look for the bald eagles who nest up in the trees around the lake. And it's just this incredible spot in nature where it really feels like you're being invited to just sort of set aside whatever your normal life problems, challenges, etc. are, and just sort of leave them at home and just come with an open mind and an open heart. We have It's a very walkable campus. So we have 10 different classrooms in various shapes and sizes, and we can accommodate classes of 30 people up to 550 people. So you can find yourself in this campus again with a great many other people who are studying various things. And so we we have an incredible ability to work inside in classrooms, but also outside in nature because we do feel like nature is such an incredible teacher. And I think again, when we talk about the changes that happen at Omega, we're aware that the land is really special and it really is a healer. And it's that in combination with all of the other folks who are arriving to study various things on our campus, that in combination, it's nature and community that really help you through. And we have a very interesting setup for workshops, conferences, retreats, whatever it may be. You do have time, classroom time, indoors or outdoors with your group, but then there's also a lot of interactivity with other people who just happen to be on the campus. For example, we have every morning open Tai Chi meditation and yoga. So you can do Tai Chi down by the lake if you'd like, or you can be in the sanctuary, which is a gorgeous space, sort of tucked up on a hillside with water running outside as just this like very peaceful, contemplative place to be. And you can um, go do yoga if you'd like, and you'll meet other people from other workshops. And then we all share meals together in our dining hall. It's mostly plant based, it's incredibly healthy, delicious food. As much of it is locally grown as humanly possible. and and so everyone takes their meals together and then separates and does their workshops and things of that nature. But then you have an opportunity later in the day after your workshop, if you'd like to go to the wellness center and have a massage or an energy treatment, you can do that. You can lounge around in our garden spaces. We have gorgeous gardens, more than 50 of them scattered throughout the property. So lots of places to just sit and write or draw if you'd like. And again, in the evening, we'll have meditation and yoga after the workshop hours, which can sort of help transition you into the evening. And then we all have dinner together. And then there are usually a variety of activities in the evening. Sometimes we'll have dancers and they'll perform, or we'll have a poet and there'll be a reading, or a group of musicians will come in and entertain. Maybe there'll be a bonfire down by the water. So it's just, I think it's sort of like this wonderful rustic adult summer camp is how I like to think about it. But you don't leave with a suntan and, mosquito bites. You leave with like a very different perspective on life.
Kathleen, many years ago when I was in the classroom, I was at this conference in another city with several colleagues, and we checked in. We were running a little bit late, and so as soon as we got checked in, my colleagues turned to the right to head down the hall. I turned to the left, and when my colleague saw that I was going in the other direction, he took one of them turned and said, "Hayden, it's down here." And I said, "I know, but the sauna's down here." And so, as a result of what you said, I've made an executive decision. Terry will teach the program, and I'm gonna wander the campus. So,
I
so
I
I'm all
think
the
that
more
might,
excited.
yeah, I think it's gonna be fantastic. And I think one of the one of the reasons I think that a workshop with both of you is perfect for Omega is just the very subject that you're talking about, and elevating the vibration of the earth through working on ourselves. And I would love for folks who may be considering coming and maybe they just need a little more information to push them over the edge. What is it that people can expect during their time with you?
How much time do we have?
It's your podcast. You have as
Right, I
much
know.
time as you'd like.
Well, this whole issue of consciousness, to me is the next pathway that mankind is getting ready to tread. There's very little that is known about it, and simultaneously, everything about it has been written about in, going back thousands of years in the ancient spiritual scriptures, and more importantly, that was contained in the work of several mystics that took place in the roughly in the 1900s. So a lot of the spiritual work, at least in my opinion, has been kind of modernized to fit where we are today. There's this concept that I abide by, and Terry, please feel free to jump in, that consciousness picks up where everything else leaves off. We truly are moving into a realm of functioning and understanding who and what we are that has never been shown to us before. We try to get the work down to the level of the individual and the individual's everyday movement through life. So, our definition of consciousness is that it is the truth of who you are that was contained in your existence at birth that is working its way out through your ignorance, through your unconsciousness. And every single one of us can look back. You don't have to be 75 years old to look back and go, oh, I remember when because I made the wrong decision or I didn't know what I was doing. But we learned. Consciousness is speeding that process up.
And I think what you just said, Hayden, is so perfect because Kathleen Hayden is incredibly well read. He's had, and I have too, I've had taken advantage of and been the recipient of wonderful teachers in my life. And we're both teachers by our background. So we're consummate learners, we're always curious, but consciousness is easy. Whereas self awareness can be very complicated because you got to think about, well, that was my mom, or that was my dad, or that was my first spouse. So people who don't have this background, like Hayden used the word mystic, in mysticism or in spirituality, or even if they can't spell the word consciousness, spell check's always correcting it for me when I'm typing it. It doesn't matter because it's contained within us, just like an acorn contains all of the DNA that it needs to become an oak tree. It has to do certain things. Not every acorn becomes an oak tree. We're the same way. But like Hayden said, without some guidance, without the knowledge and information that is available to us, and it's not complicated. Like it's much simpler than therapy or self awareness. So, what people can expect to gain by coming to this weekend at Omega with us and working in this consciousness content is to get past that little bump, that knot, that ledge that they've come to, and they just can't quite get past it, to be happy, to be well, to be comfortable in their own skin. It actually provides the bridge to get from that place. Like, I know it's not supposed to be this hard, or it's not supposed to be this heavy, to be able to cross over to this other side of, like, the rose that's unfolding, that, "Oh, I see now. I see the unfolding. I see the purpose of this. I see how this happened." Hayden and I have a longtime friend who came to our conference in September. She had lost a baby, and it was the only one that she had, and she just had felt that knot inside of her all of these years from that, and she said that this has really helped her heal that. It's just that when we get the right information, we get the truth about, um, who we are and why we're here, which is not just to have everything easy and have everything go like smooth sailing, right? But it's to grow and to evolve and come closer to that, that divine within that everybody knows we have, but very few people believe they're it. So what they can expect to get is to move from the knowledge of, I am the spark of the divine, to actually allowing ourselves to be that, and not only in our own lives, but in the world.
But not just, Terry, not just, speaking about it esoterically, but
Right.
looking at principles of how consciousness can be applied. That became such an important pathway for me is, can consciousness be taught? And, prior to that, we've all grown up hearing these, you know, phrases like, well, you get wiser as you get older. Well, I don't need to be wise when I'm older. I need to be wise when I'm younger. In terms of what the individual can expect, if there's one thing I really want to accomplish is, I've always believed this: if you can just set the learner on fire, you can get out of their way and they'll take care of the rest. I want individuals to develop an aspiration to know that truth. And we will be able to define and show that pathway as to how that can be learned. A really simple way of understanding this, and I want to highlight something that Terry said because I grew up strongly in the self awareness movement, and particularly my first teacher, who was a master of self awareness, and would find out later that as I would ask my third teacher, do you believe that self awareness is a prerequisite to becoming conscious? And the person replied, and I quote, well, it's helpful. And I get that, I understand that, but is it required? No, because truth clarifies. Everything resides in a mathematical precision, and that includes the positive and the negative. So, a really easy way to understand what can be expected is that
Yeah.
what we will do is we will move from the triangle, mind, body, and emotion, we will move from the triangle to the square. And the square contains the missing piece of the puzzle. And that missing piece is consciousness, or you could say spirituality, spiritual truth. And so we want to help the individual move from the triangle of their life to the square of their life.
Yeah. So, what, in terms of the workshop itself, what can people expect? Like, how do you sort of move through the weekend? Talk to me about who they are when they come in the door, and then if there's any like exercises they can expect to be walked through, or, you know, give us the secret of how you're ex- expecting or helping or um, sort of leading people through that time so that they can have that aha moment or that transformation at the end of the weekend.
One of the things since Hayden and I, not only were we both classroom teachers, but we've had our own business for over 30 years doing leadership development, team building. So, and I give Hayden a lot of credit for this. He's very, very good at understanding rhythm and energy and movement. So we don't have very much lecture. You know, there is content that is shared, like Hayden said, around principles so that they have things to work with. But then there's much more time for us to explore with different mediums. Sometimes it's actually with video or other opportunities for them to get the aha, like, oh, I see it in action in that video. But then they also have a lot of time in either small groups, like 3 or 4 people, or a partner to then digest and work through some of these or all of the principles and the concepts that we bring forward because it's not about quantity. Like Hayden said, it's how do we light the fire in the person so that they go, I know that there's more inside of me that I want to come into contact with. So it is in our conference, we had yoga, we had meditation, we had Tai Chi. It is using these same principles of mind, body, and emotion to then open up to how does this apply to the invisible? Because we do understand mind, body, and emotion pretty well. So we use those in the workshop through different exercises and different modalities. And then we help them apply that to the invisible part of their lives. So the movement of our workshops is very conducive to people being able to stay engaged. As we move through the weekend, there is a rhythm and a flow.
From a structural point of view, one of the things that we have always done, and I can guarantee that we will do this at Omega, um, while in the beginning, there might be at the very beginning of the program, there might be a few exercises of introduction and getting people settled in. But before we proceed, we create a foundation from which we will operate. Usually that involves the presentation of some of the content that we will be looking at. But probably one of the greatest skills that Terry and I have is we go where the water is flowing the strongest. And that is we'll have an agenda, but I can't think of a single program we've conducted over the last 30 years where we ever abided by that agenda because we went to where the program needed to go. So if there's a particular topic, for example, that comes up that is really resonating with everyone, we'll stick with it and let people go as far into it as they want to go. I think that's a very predictable skill that we apply to every bit of our work is taking it where it needs to go. So if we have to go back into some self-awareness concept or something about the mind, I don't want to have an issue in doing that, but then we're going to relate it to the grandeur of this thing called consciousness.
So if somebody wants to bring something up, obviously that's what we encourage, and that if it goes in a little bit different direction because that's what they need, that's the beauty of it, because that's the application that we want people to have. It's not about learning a lot of content. It's how do I apply these, as Hayden said, principles. Like one of the principles is if it's true about the universe, it's true about you. And how do we apply that in our life to make our life much more authentic and powerful and purposeful by understanding just some of these simple things. So if anybody in the group says, "Can you help me understand?" then that's where we're going to go.
Where we're
You
gonna
know,
go. Yeah.
we're not going to say, "I'm sorry, that's not on the agenda," right?
I think it might help folks if you could give an example of a person who has come into your workshop one way and then describe how they are at the end of it, because that might help bridge, you know, the topic from being sort of philosophical versus like the physical, the hands-on, the actual transformation.
I'm thinking of one person in particular, Hayden, but we could talk about innumerable people. But again, he was dealing with a great deal of uncertainty in about every aspect of his life, and he would say his upregulation was extremely unhealthy for him. You know, he would gain weight then he would lose weight. He would be snappy or difficult, critical with his wife, and then he would withdraw. I mean, he just had so many things, but mostly it was this eating him up inside, of how he just felt totally out of control and like he was always in a whirlwind or kind of spiraling. Plus, I think he would say depression was something that he dealt with, and the effects that that had on his life. And I would say after the conference in September, this was a changed person, not because of Hayden or me, but because he did the introspection and he applied the principles into his own thinking and said, I'm doing this to myself. Nobody's doing anything to me. These are circumstances outside of me, but they don't control me or define me. And he made incredible changes in his life. I mean, including not including losing probably 30 pounds, but it wasn't because he was trying to lose weight. It was because he wasn't putting all that weight on himself, from the anxiety and from the feelings of self-loathing and like he wasn't in control of his life, but it was in control of him. And when he shifted that perspective, he was he was still himself, this wonderful, unique, brilliant person, but he wasn't putting all that extra stress and anxiety on himself. And so he was able to function in a much more productive, and he still is, more healthy way. It doesn't mean, we know consciousness doesn't mean you never have difficulties. It doesn't mean that things don't come your way, or we don't deal with loss or disappointment. It means that I view it and I perceive it and I respond to it in a different way, in a much more, centered way, in a
Well,
much more
you understand its purpose. That's the issue. The difficulty is never without purpose and meaning. Well, we haven't been trained to see it that way. I think it's a very common a position. I certainly felt that way when, at the very beginning of perceiving consciousness as philosophical or esoteric, and understand that. But I would go back again to something that I said earlier, which is consciousness picks up where everything else leaves off.
So when people learn this wisdom, this truth, these principles that are contained in our consciousness work, I say our because we're the ones teaching it. We didn't make it up. This isn't our, we didn't come up with the truth. It just is the truth. When people learn this and they can then see their life through that lens, now I really get to decide the experience of my life rather than the experiences of my life deciding who I am, like not lovable, not worth staying with, not safe, all of that. So what people gain is a true sense of self. And again, it's not just a temporary retreat from their external life, which I think a lot of, whether it's meditation or going to a retreat center can be. It's like, well, let's hit a reset button. It's more than that. It's now I see things through this whole different lens, and that sets us free.
It sounds like there's a big dose of personal responsibility that comes through with the consciousness.
Yeah. Yeah. But in a really positive way, because who doesn't want to feel liberated from the pressure of the external? It's that the external does happen, of course, and we all are going to have those things to deal with, but it doesn't determine who I am. For example, one of the questions that we ask and early on is which comes first, existence or experience? And most people will say, well, existence. You can't experience anything if you don't exist. And so, how is it possible that your experiences define you or that you're the sum of your experiences? You're not. You are your existence having experiences. So, when Hayden said, consciousness is the truth of who you are, that's your existence, but it's working its way out through your experiences, your mistakes, your heartbreaks, your disappointments, your joys, your successes. And in that way, we get closer and closer to the truth of who we are. But if we don't know the difference of those two, we kind of fumble around a lot and we waste a lot of time. We've had 25, 30-year-olds come to our workshops or conference and say, oh, I don't have to do this to myself. I don't have to. And they get it like that. It's, sometimes the older we get and we've practiced some of these patterns longer, it takes a little bit more time to interrupt them. But honestly, once we get the aha, it's like, oh, now I get it. I get it. It's not so difficult. It's like self-awareness or therapy. I'm not, and like Hayden said, those are important modalities and they're stepping stones, but they take more time. Consciousness is kind of like, whoa, there, I get it. I get it. And I don't have.
Kathleen, you said something that I want to capitalize on your wisdom when you made this statement about personal responsibility. I believe with all of my heart that what we are involved in now on the planet, that the resolution to this division, the resolution to these, you could say, not just the division in political views, the division in classes, the welfare of the all versus the welfare of the few. And what we are witness to is that the resolution to that is not going to come through the restoration of institutions, of political movements. It is going to come about through individual transformation. I believe with all of my heart that is the key to the future of the world. It is not the institutions that are going to save us. It is we ourselves. And you cannot give to someone something that you don't have, whether it is peace, whether it's unity, whether it is love. Unless that unity is inside of you, it's just words. Unless you have learned to love and accept yourself You cannot give that to another person. So it goes right back to this issue of individual transformation, and that is what our work is predicated upon.
We have, like somebody said to me recently who came to our conference in September, she said there was such a huge variety and people at different levels that that was also really powerful because you don't just learn from Hayden and me, you're learning from other people.
Here's the last thing that I will share. It's easy to talk about this from the position, for example, of being a teacher. The real work is down in the mud. It's down in, in your personal life. So I wanna practice, exactly what I know to be true, which is I'll share something personal. And over the course of about 7 years in my childhood, I went through a lot of physical and sexual abuse, at the hands of a stepfather. And, he would die when I was 14 years old, and, every child thinks, once the perpetrator is gone, then everything's okay, but it's not. It's not how it works and how it functions. And, I started as a result of my first 2 teachers, I began a very aggressive meditation practice, that was gonna last, about 10 years, and towards the end of that, 10 years, it was the first experience that I would have, an out-of-body experience. And I won't go into all that other than to say that I thought I had died. It was like being shown, the entire how the universe works. But one of the things that happened in that experience was I was shown. It only lasted maybe 3 or 4 seconds. I was shown the purpose of the abuse that I went through, which was it was immediate. It was clarifying that in order to help other people with their darkness, it was required that I know the darkness as well. And immediately upon seeing that, my forgiveness of my stepfather, my family was immediate. It was like chains being taken off of me, where so much of my identification had been around, as Terry talked about, the experiences. And now that I'm free of that, now what am I going to do? So I'm not just a teacher of this. I have walked this path as well and will continue to walk it, and until the day that I pass away. It's the greatest thing in the world. All there is love, and we come from the unknown into the unknown, but truth is not unknown, and that's all we need. Once we get that, we've got a bigger problem than the one we thought we had, which is now what are you gonna do? And now back to your statement of personal responsibility.
That is an incredible, incredible story. Like, just incredible story. And as you were talking about,
We all have it. We all have that story.
yeah, but as you're talking about the moment of realizing that what the purpose of what you went through, I think that that is the transformation people can expect when they finally connect the dots. Uh, Existence versus experience, etc. And it's just amazing. It strikes me as I'm talking to the two of you, like, this is the part of my job that I actually like the best, is just being able to have some really in-depth conversations with people in a way that you'd never have the access in another job at all. And it's sort of like, this is the whole point. How are we collectively, you, me, Omega, everyone, how are we making the world a different and better place? So
Yeah.
I hope everybody who hears the sound of our voices will sign up and come to your workshop at Omega this summer. I guess we should probably let everybody know that The workshop is July 31st to August 2nd, Becoming You, the Consciousness Conference.
Thank you so much, Kathleen. And we really appreciate not only your time, but your insights and input. And I'm so excited to come to Omega. And so many people I know have been there and just rave about it. So I appreciate your time. And I agree with you. It's these kind of opportunities to come together that make your job. And my daughter one time told me said something, I have a job. I said, I don't have a job. And she said, "You do, mom, you have a job." I said, "I do not have a job because I don't think of it like, the way you describe Omega, I think that's not a job, that's a life."
Yeah.
And that's
It
how I
is a
feel
life.
about my
Oh,
work too. It's a life and it's one that Hayden and I both feel very drawn not only for our own, like, what do we have to bring to the world? What is our purpose? But also just the joy of connecting with other people at this level is so, yeah, there's nothing else really like it. So thank you so much for your time. I deeply
oh my gosh. Thank you. It's been a joy to connect with you both, and I'll see you at Omega.